Test, test. At Sarai in the land of Tartaria, there dwelt a king who warred with Muscovy, in which wars died many a mighty man. This noble king was called Cambius Khan, who in his time was of such great renown that there was nowhere in no region found so excellent a lord in everything. He lacked naught that does befit a king. As to the sect in which he had been born, he kept the law to serve which he had sworn. Also die Bombe aufs Auto geschmissen oder was? Diese Idioten, Mann. Heiden sind das. Added to this, he was wise, brave, and rich, and merciful, and just, constantly fixed on truthful speech, benign and honorable. As firmly set as the center of a circle, young, fresh, and strong, he wore espoused as meanly as any true knight of his house. A fair person he was, and fortunate, and ever so maintained his royal state, that there was nowhere such another man. This noble king, this Tartarian Cambius Khan, had two sons by Elfeta, his wife, the eldest of the two named Algarsife, the other son in turn called Cambalo. A daughter had this noble king also, youngest of all. Her name was Kanake. But to tell you of all her beauty lies not in my tongue nor understanding. I dare not undertake such a great thing. My English too would prove insufficient. Only a rhetorician excellent in all the frills belonging to that art could describe her to you in every part. I am none. I must speak then as I can. And so befell it when this Kembusi Khan had 20 winters worn his diadem, he held a feast, a custom among them, to celebrate his own nativity, which was proclaimed through Sarai city. On the Ides of March in the new year, Phoebus, the sun, shone bright and clear, for he was near his exaltation, in Mars' face and in his mansion. In Aries, the choleric hot sign. Cheerful was the weather and benign, so that the birds in the sun's gleam, what with the season and the fresh green, full loudly sang out their affection, feeling they had the last won protection against the sword of winter, keen and cold. This Cambusi Khan, of whom I have told, in royal vestments sat on his days, with diadem full high in his palace. Palace des. On his des. On his dais. Podium. Dais. In his palace, reimt sich aber trotzdem nicht, and held his feast so solemn and so rich that in this world there was none other which could match it. And if I told of its array, then would I occupy a summer's day. Nor is there reason for me to advise you of the order of the meal in any wise. I'll not list the exotic dishes, swans in any number, also young herons. And in that land too, to so say the knights old, there are meats that men as dainties hold. Though in this country their worth is small, there is no man who could tell them all. I will not delay you now, for it is prime. It would be fruitless, simply wasted time. To my initial theme, then, I'll have recourse. It so befell that after the third course, while the king in splendor sat, I say, listening to his minstrels sing and play, before him at the table delightfully, in at the hall door all suddenly, there came a knight upon a horse of brass, and in his hand a mirror broad of glass. Upon his stump he had a golden ring, and by his side a naked sword hanging. And up the road to the king's high board in all the hall was spoken never a word. For wonder at this knight, him to behold, full eagerly they waited, young and old, the unknown knight who came thus suddenly, all armed, save for his head full richly. Saluted king and queen and lords all, in order as were seated to the hall, with such deep reverence and obeisance, as much in speech as in his countenance. That Gawain, with his ancient courtesy, though he were come again out of fury, could not have bettered him in any word, and after this, before the king's high board, he in a manly voice proclaimed his message, according to the manner of his language, without defect of syllable or letter, and that his tale might appear the better, as his words did, so did his face appear, like those who learn the art of speech here. And though I cannot imitate his style, nor can I climb over so high a style, yet say I this: as to the general intent, what follows next adds up to what he meant. If it be that I have it still in mind, he said, the king of Araby and Ind, my liege lord, upon his solemn day, salutes you as best as he can and may, and sends you in honor of your feast by me who am ready to serve your needs. This horse of brass that easily and well can in the space of one day natural, that is to say in 24 hours, wherever you wish, in drought or in showers, transport your body into every place where your heart wishes you to pace, without harming you through foul and fair, or if you choose to fly as high in the air, as an eagle does when he seeks to soar. The same steed will bear you evermore, unharmed, till you are where you think you best, though you sleep on his back or rest, and return again when you twist this pin, who route it knew many a cunning thing. Through many a starry configuration he waited to perform this operation, and many a seal and bond did understand. This mirror too that I have in my hand has such a power that a man may in it see when will befall any adversity. Unto your kingdom and to yourself also, and openly, who is your friend or foe. And moreover, if any lady bright has set her heart on any manner of knight, if he is false, she shall his treason see, his new love, and all his secrecy. So clearly, then, that he shall nothing hide. Wherefore, again, this cheerful summertide, the mirror and the ring that you can see, he has sent to my lady Canacee. Your excellent daughter sitting here. The virtue of the ring you will hear is this, that if she should choose to wear it on her thumb or in her purse, it bear. There is no bird flying in the heavens whose tongue she'll not understand as given. And now its meaning openly and plain, and answer it in its language once again. And every herb that grows on its root she shall know too, and whom it will suit. Although his wound be ever so deep and wide, this naked sword that hangs by my side, such virtue has that whoever shall you smite, through his armor it will carve and bite, so it were thick as is a branching oak, and whoever is wounded by its stroke shall never be whole till you choose of grace to stroke him with the flat of in it the place it in the place. where he is hurt. That's as much as to say, you must with the flat of the sword again stroke the wound, and it will swiftly close. This is the truth indeed, may all men know. It will not fail while it is in your hold. And when the knight had thus his tale told, he rode out of the hall and did all alight. His horse that glittered as the sun so bright stood in the courtyard, still as any stone. The knight to a chamber was led alone, his armor off to the table then he sat. The gifts were carried, royalty at that. That is to say, the sword and the mirror, in precision into the high tower, by certain officers to this so sworn, and unto Canis the ring was borne, solemnly to where she sat at table, but assuredly without a touch of fable. The horse of brass itself could not be moved, it stands as if to earth it has been glued. It cannot be stirred by a man, any man alive, though with pulley and windlass they may strive. And why, then? Because they lack the skill, and therefore in that place they leave it still, until the knight shall teach them the manner of moving it, as you shall shortly hear. Great was the crowd that swarmed to and fro, to gaze at the horse that stood there so, for it was that high, and broad and long, and well proportioned, so that it was strong, as if it had been a steed of Lombardy, and withal so quick of eye and lively, as if it an Apulian courser were, indeed from its tail up to its ear. Nature and art could not the horse amend for the better, so all said in the end. But always the greater wonder was how it could move about if it were brass. It was of work of fairy, so it seemed. Various folk, they variously scheme. As many minds as heads, yet none agrees, murmuring as does a swarm of bees, and think according to their fantasy, repeating fragments of old poetry, saying it is in truth like Pegasus, who fled through the air the winged horse, or else like the Greek horse of Sinon, that brought great Troy to its destruction, as they had in the oldest stories read. My heart, quoth one, is evermore in dread. I fear some man at arms lie there within, whose intent is this city for to win. It would be well if we such things could know. Another whispered to his neighbor low, and said, he's wrong. It's rather by my logic, an apparition fashioned by some magic, as tricksters conjure things at feasts of state. Of sundry doubts they chatter and debate, as the unknowing will do commonly, regarding things fashioned far more subtly than they in their ignorance can comprehend, yet leap to the wrong conclusion in the end. And some of them marveled at the mirror that had been carried to the master tower, wondering how men things in it could see. Another answered and said it might well be naturally and by combinations of angles and skillful reflections, and said that in Rome was such a one. They spoke of Vitello and Alhazen and Aristotle, who all left directives concerning curious mirrors and perspectives, as men know who have their works explored, and other folk marveled at the sword that would pierce clear through everything, and spoke of Telephus, the Mysian king, and of Achilles with his wondrous spear, for he could wound and heal, as you may hear, just in the way that men may with this sword, of which right now heard our king and lord. They spoke of clever tempering of metal, and spoke of the agents to be used withal, withal, and how and when it should tempered be withal. Was ist das? Withal, wahrscheinlich. Metal withal. Obendrein. Withal. Withal. Metal withal. And how and when it should tempered be a thing unknown, at least it is to me. Then they spoke about Canis's ring, And all conceded such a wondrous thing. Of ringcraft they had never heard, not one, except that Moses and King Solomon were said to have true knowledge of the art. Thus said the people gathering apart. And in addition, some declared it was marvelous to make of fern ash glass. And yet glass is unlike the ash of fern, though since this was nothing new to learn, those soon ceased their chattering and wonder. Some wondered just as deeply about thunder, and ebb and flood, and gossamer, and mist, and other things as long as doubts exist. Thus they chatter, wrangle, and advise, till the king from the table deigns to rise. Phoebus had left the line meridional, and still ascending was the beast royal, the noble lion, and his star Alderon, when the Tartarian king, Cambius Khan, rose from the table at which sat he. Before him went the sound of minstrelsy. Musikantentum. Till in the stateroom all men were present where sounded their diverse instruments, that it was heavenly for them to hear. Then there danced sweet Venus' children dear, for the lady in the fishnet sat on high, and gazed on them with a friendly eye. The noble king was seated on his throne, the unknown knight was fetched here alone. Into the dance he goes with Canis. Now is there revelling and jollity, that no dull man might easily devise. He must have known of love in every guise, and be a jovial man as fresh as May, who could devise for you like a ray. For who could describe for you the dances so strange in form, the fresh countenance? Such secret glances and dissimulations, for dread of jealous men's observations, no man but Lancelot, and he long dead. Therefore I pass from all this joy instead. I say no more, but in their happiness I leave them all their supper, their dress. The steward orders spices by and by, and also wine, the minstrelsy's ally. The ushers and the squires swiftly gone, the spices and the wine arrive anon. They eat and drink, and what that's at the end, an end, unto the temple, as is right, they went. The service done, they feasted all day. What need to tell you of all this array? Each man well knows that at a king's feast there's plenty for the greatest and the least, and more dainties than are in my knowing. After the supper went the noble king to see the horse of brass with the whole rout of lords and ladies gathered round about. Such marvelling was there at this horse of brass, that since the great siege of Troy came to pass, where men marveled at a horse also, there was never such wonder here below. But finally the king asked the knight the virtues of the courser and its might, and prayed him to explain its governance. The horse soon began to frisk and dance, when the knight laid hand upon its rein, and said, Sire, there's no more to explain, but when you wish to ride off anywhere, you turn the pin inserted in its ear, which I shall tell you of between us two. You must tell him the places to which you wish to go, or the country where you'd ride, and when you reach a place where you would bide, bid him descend, then turn another pin. For the action of the creature lies therein, and he'll descend and execute your will. And in that place he will bide quite still, though all men to the contrary be sworn, he cannot be dragged from there drawn. But if you choose to bid him hence he gone, turn the pin, and he will vanish anon. Out of every man and woman's sight, yet return once more, whether by day or night, when you choose to summon him again, in such a manner as I will explain, between us two and that full soon. Now you may ride when you wish, there's no more to do. Informed as the king was by the knight, when he had grasped all in his mind aright, both the manner and form of the whole thing, full glad and blithe, the fine and noble king repaired to his revels as before. The bridle then into the tower they bore, and kept it with his jewels, prized and dear. The horse then vanished. How I am not clear. Out of his sight, you get no more of me. But thus I leave in joy and jollity Kambuzi Khan, with his lords a feasting. The well nigh the day began to spring. The day and the year. Metal Leute. Metal.